Welcome back to episode 4 of the Lose Your Mind podcast, series 3. Alan and I are back together to discuss some wonderful topics that are really important to us, and we are wanting to share them with you. Alan, it's great to be here today.
It's great to be here with you again, Kelly. Looking forward to a nice chat.
Yes, we're going to have a quick chat around writing and journaling today, aren't we?
We do, which is something we both love to do. Love writing. If you hadn't already heard, we're both authors. Having published books in 2024, which were our first book. So yeah, we're all in the mood for talking about writing and also journaling. And maybe they're two different things. I don't know. We'll explore that a little bit.
We can, because we shared in the past 2 episodes about your book, your writing, my book and mine, and how important writing is, I think, to everyone in some way, but it just might not look the same because there's a lot of expectation around being good enough or it having to mean something. But when, I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm writing, the more I get into it, it doesn't necessarily have any form or structure at points. It's just enjoying the process of it, just writing stuff down, ideas, notes, thoughts, things I might see on the street or throughout the day. And it can just be really quite fun.
It is fun. I also think you can solve problems and be creative around writing. What I really enjoy about the writing process is when you sit down to write at your laptop or you're writing with your pen in your journal or however you do that, then I think you start out thinking you're going to write something and then you end up writing something completely different. I think there's
Mm.
something about the power of the pen or through your fingers where you just start to create and you get stuff out of your mind and the deeper recesses of your mind sometimes and say, oh, that kind of works. And let's follow that idea. And I think that's the absolute joy of writing. The part of writing I really didn't like in doing that book was all the editing and going over it because I felt like I was being closed in to produce something that was going to be, marketable and readable for somebody else. And of course, it's got to be readable, if you're going to publish it. But I think the real joy of it is just doing it for yourself, to be honest.
I agree. And I think you can learn so much from writing. I think we can uncover mysteries and, things inside ourselves, can't we? Just by writing stuff down, because, like you say, you don't quite know how it's going to unfold on the page, but it takes its own sort of twists and turns and tails. And then before you know it, you're in a whole new place. And it's quite magical, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, last year, you and I both wrote books around a kind of sort of self-help in a way.
Mm.
To put a huge like umbrella over both of them, which is probably not entirely fair, but the point is I'm quite envious of, and when I say envious, I don't need to be envious because I can do it myself, but I'm envious of, fantasy writers, who just go off into different worlds. And that's what I used to do as a kid and I haven't done so much of as an adult. And I think there's something therapeutic in it and really powerful about using your imagination to create stories, to create situations. It's very often just a antidote to the seriousness of life and the
Mm.
boxes we find ourselves in, meeting expectations of others. And I like to get out of that box sometimes.
I was gonna, when you were speaking then, that's what come to mind for me. It enables you to just blow the box apart, doesn't it? Just, like if you think about all the stars in the sky and how vast that is and we don't see it, when you're writing, you can just go anywhere you want, can't you? And there's no
Yeah.
limits, no expectations, no boundaries, no restrictions. It's freedom at its finest.
You're right, it's infinity, like the
Yeah.
stars in the sky.
Yeah, infinity and beyond.
Mm.
Toy Story, that is, isn't
There you go. That's the title of your next book.
it? Infinity and beyond.
Yeah.
But I think fiction writing is fun. And yeah, I think for me, I don't know about you, but writing that initial book and maybe for you, like you categorize them into self-help, which is accurate. We want to help people and we've shared experience. But I feel maybe for me, I think the drive to help other people not feel that was really strong. Whereas if I wrote a story the first time round, a fiction one, I'd constantly question if it was good enough, if anyone would want to read it. And
Mm.
because it's just a fiction story or a fantasy, I think I'd probably get in my head way too much to push it over the line. So by doing the non-fiction one first, there was that driven passion of experience rather than just ideas that I really wanted to share. Whereas now I'd love to share I don't know, yeah, something. Who knows? But yeah, I'd love to share a little fantasy story. Don't
Oh,
quite know where that would go, but
why don't you?
I might, and I think you should do the same. Maybe 2026 we could share these little short stories or something.
Well, yes, why not? I mean, they always say, these writers, they generally do a book a year, don't they? So why not do a book a year? One I was thinking of doing was a fictional tale of mindfulness.
Hmm.
There's lots of books out around mindfulness and some very good ones. And I'm not sure I can particularly add too much to that. A lot of people that write them are the neuroscientists and or they're spiritualists or whatever they are. And there's a lot of good stuff out there, but I'm not sure there's too much stuff about, mindfulness as part of life and having those messages come across to people about how you can solve problems in life by using mindfulness. And what are the underlying messages that we are trying to give, and maybe it's just a way of doing that because we know that stories are compelling for us as human beings. That's what makes us different, isn't it, from the rest of the animal world? We tell stories to each other, have done since we first started communicating with others, and it will go on always. So that's the way people learn. So that's a good way to spread the message.
Well, I think you do have stuff to add. I think we all have stuff to add in whichever form that takes for you. I like the idea of your story, and I'm sure you would write something wonderful that I will look forward to reading sometime.
Well, I've got
But
I've got an idea of a plot line
would
which I'm quite excited about. I'm not going to share that in case anybody nicks the idea, but I do have an idea of a plot line, and I'd like to just sort of start it with that. I know that I've listened to a lot of writers talk, and some of them just start out on page one and they've got no idea where the novel's going to go. And you have others that have got every step plotted out. I think I'd rather be a bit towards the first one because I just, it's for fun. I don't expect to sell millions of copies. I just want to do something that's fun.
Yeah, I like the first idea. You don't know where it's going to go.
I
You
thought you would.
just But for those listening that, writing's not their thing, I mean, not everyone has an aspiration to write a book, do they? But journaling, the other thing that we wanted to touch on, is so powerful. When we write, we don't have to write to share, we don't have to write to publish, we don't have to write to have an answer or make sense of anything. It's just exploring. I mean, the amount of stuff that comes through when I journal, don't want to go too spiritual here for this episode, but I just, when you just information channels in.
Mm.
It's like the poems in my book. I honestly didn't really have much control over the way the words come out, but just giving myself the space to feel into what was happening inside me, it just pulled together these words. And then I was able to make sense of how I felt. And I think that's what journaling does for us. It's a free flow. It gives understanding. So if anyone out there just wants to tap into creativity, wants to try and understand what's going on in their life, if they're having a difficult time and they've got no one to talk to, journaling can be such a wonderful thing. And even if you don't know what to say, just writing down, I don't know what to write. I don't know where this is going. Just that first sentence. I've done that so many times. And then from that, little things spark off and words come in. And then before you know it, you're tapping into somewhere inside that's been blocked and you're, you know, limitless, so blowing it open. So I love journaling. Love it.
I know, and we talked about it last week, and you've done a section in your book about it, and so there's no excuse for not knowing how to. There's plenty of instruction from you, and there's lots of that on YouTube as well, for example. But you just touched on something else there, poetry. Because when I think about writing, I tend to think about writing prose. But poetry is so powerful. And in our game as well, in mindfulness, I know that when we teach, we very often use poetry to get a message across. And I think it connects with the emotional mind. It connects with that part of us that has our own interpretation on what the words mean. Because I think a
Mm.
good poem should leave things open to interpretation. Whereas, like I was saying before, when you're in this box of, I need people to understand exactly what I'm saying, and that's what, I was trying to do in my book. I need you to understand exactly what I'm saying. With poetry, you can leave it open to yourself. And, I think we might even read a little poem at the end of this episode just to leave you and tantalize your poetry taste buds.
I'll read one from my book if you like.
Absolutely, we could do that. And I had another one in mind, actually, which I won't tell you
We'll
now,
go
but I'll
with your one.
surprise you at the end.
Okay.
No, we can
I
do
think
both.
I think poetry is quite powerful though, like you say, because it really touches somewhere inside of you to be able to explore something you might not even know yourself, you know?
I did read this poem out that I think I'll read to my mindfulness class last week, and I got them to close their eyes, and they just, at the end of it, you could see when they opened their eyes again, and there was like this wow, and a light had gone on, so I could probably ramble on about mindfulness for half an hour. And they might pick up one or two words, one or two things, and maybe they lose all the rest and don't understand it. But I think the poem really hits home.
Well, go on then. Give it to us.
All right, well, let's hear it. You know it, and it is called The Journey, and it's by someone called Mary Oliver, and it goes like this. One day you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried, but you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do. Though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.
Mm. I love that. I think as well, it is all we've got.
It is, isn't it? Ours is the only one we can truly save.
I know.
Assuming that's what she meant.
Well, that's like what you said, though. We all have our own interpretation, and it gives us a chance to
Yeah.
explore what we're feeling. And I don't know about you, but we obviously share stories and poems in mindfulness a lot. And I can hear the same poem at a different point in my life, and I take different meaning from that poem. And I think it's just really important to, allow ourselves the exploration, allow ourselves to feel, to think, to write, to explore, to create. And anyone that's listening, I think that's what writing can bring to us. It's not to publish a book, it's not to, make millions of pounds. It's to find that connection. We touched on it last week, and it might not be to other people. Yes, it might be. When we share a part of ourselves, we get to connect with other people, and they feel less alone when they hear or read something that they can relate to, like that poem. But equally, you just get to deepen that connection to yourself and understand you a bit better. And what better place to be than, compassionate and understanding to you?
It's about understanding yourself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you want to read
It is.
yours?
Right, I'll share a shorter one. But this is from chapter 2 of my book, and it relates to writing, and it's called New Doors. Flowing through my fingers, the thoughts they leave my mind. Present in this moment, anxiety left behind. I feel a little scared, but excited all the same. The pen, it gives me freedom and acceptance of the shame. Writing is the key to the center of my heart, opening that knowing when I don't know where to start. Loss and pain are felt in every single bone, but without it, I'd have never braved the wondrous unknown. The gratitude I feel brings a smile across my face. This now shines throughout my soul, anxiety replaced. Dare to see the future, let go to it all, live out your adventure and listen to your call. There we
Listen
go.
to your call.
Yeah.
Did you write that?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I thought you'd read my book.
I
Obviously, you
can't
didn't
remember
read
every
page
word.
23.
I only got as far as page 22.
Ironic.
Joking,
Um,
obviously.
yeah, so that was, but even with that, people have their own interpretation. For me, I do feel less alone when I'm writing. It
And
helps
that
me.
that's exactly what I got from it as well. And all the things that we've talked about that self-discovery and getting when you said loss and pain, it is a good thing to write. I always think if you struggle to write anything, then the time you should really do it is when you're feeling pain and feeling emotional difficulty.
I live a life like that, so I've got a lot to write.
Well, I hope that's not true.
No, it's not quite true, but I am quite an emotional person. And I think I like feeling something. I've acknowledged this over time through music writing. I love to put a song on and really sink in it,
Hmm.
and let it rip everything out of me so I can feel it. Like I just love feeling stuff, and writing enables me to feel it. I'm not a blocker, I'm a feeler. So I think if anyone's listening, they likes feeling or wants to open up whatever's going on inside, writing and journaling is an absolute sure way to open that gateway to
To,
wonder.
to wonder. Well, yeah, and also with the mindfulness, principles of being okay with the way things are,
Mm,
just accepting the way things are. If you write about what really is going on inside you, or
yeah.
whether it's the situation you're facing, or whether you're just looking at a sunset, it's getting it down on paper. That it's like mindfulness, getting out of your mind and it losing your mind and onto the page, which
And
is
that's what I
that's why the two things go together. Sorry,
no, I was going to say, and that's the name of our podcast, isn't it? Lose your mind.
that's why I chose those very words.
And in fact, Alan, I've noticed throughout this new series, we've left something for people to either take away with, engage with us on, or a link to something that can help them further whatever they're listening to and exploring. And I think it would be really nice if anyone's listening to this episode as we come to a stop here, that if they want to share, we could put our email addresses on this episode. And if anyone's got any short stories they want to share or anything, we would welcome hearing from anyone that would like to.
We certainly would, and poems as well.
Mm,
Particularly, we do like
yeah.
poems. As we said, they can be so powerful.
So give us some final closing points, Alan.
Writing is great. Even if you think you're not a writer, you probably are. And don't underestimate it as a tool for using mindfulness, handling emotional difficulty, being creative. All these things make life better. So give it a go. All you need is a pen and paper. It's not expensive and a little bit of time, and it doesn't need to be perfect.
That's true. Well,
How
I
about
think you've
you?
said so. Yes, just to finish then, this sign that we've both seen before, that says writing is the painting of the voice.
Writing is the painting of the voice. Isn't that beautiful? Sums it
That
up.
just, yeah, and it just leaves it open for everyone to do what they need to do, get creative,
Do their own brushstrokes.
blank canvas.
I think that's a good place to leave it, don't you?
I do.
All right.
So, Until we meet again.
Until we meet again, we'll see you next time.
Okay.